The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Hello and welcome to the Hoop Ball NBA DFS Today podcast. Today is Thursday, September 26th. I am Joe Sarvadi, affectionately known as Coach, and I am joined by one of the sharks, not only in the basketball world of DFS, but now in the football world of DFS, Mr. Mike Apotria. Mike, I hear you're still cleaning out even football, brother. What's up?
I wouldn't say cleaning out, but yeah, I don't know, man. It's this rake free. Shout out fantasy draft. Well, I'll say it all year long, man. It's your odds of winning are increased in rake free contests. They pay out a little bit more, and I'm up. What are we going into week 4? I think I'm up about $440. Started with a $20 one entry, so
How about that?
I don't consider myself a shark. It's not exactly winnings that are gonna pay back student loans or car loans or anything like that, but win's a win, and it's padding the bankroll for the DFS NBA season. That's what I'm really gearing up for.
Absolutely. I mean, our goal was to get us ready to pad our bankrolls in the preseason and first couple of weeks. You're even doing it a step before that with football. I'm impressed, man. I am impressed.
We'll see if it rolls on to into week 4. I might be jinxing it now, talking a little bit too much about it, and I might ease back on the lineups I entered this week. Maybe just throw one out there, try to keep the bankroll surviving for a little while. I don't want to get over my head.
Well, I know you threw the gauntlet out at the end of the show last week. Did anybody take you up on any head-to-heads?
No, they got lucky. Because I had a good lineup last week, so. No. I'm always game for a little contest. Like I said, sign up if you're not already signed up. Use our promo code Hoop-Ball over there on Fantasy Draft, and you get that free week of rake free. So face me, but jump in these contests while you could. Try it out, see if you like it. I guarantee you will, and then sign up for the year because it's totally worth it right here, guys. It's the real deal over here on Fantasy Draft.
There's no doubt. There's no more dash in our promo though. It's just Hoop Ball. Yeah, all one word, just so we don't screw up our listeners getting the promo. But I'll jump right in. The presenting sponsor of this show is Fantasy Draft, so we're excited again to be working with them. We're going to officially be carrying this into the preseason and into the regular season. So we're very excited. We thank all the listeners and all the positive reviews we're getting. We really appreciate that and appreciate Fantasy Draft jumping on here with Hoop Ball, and we're going to have a hell of a season. They are the only guaranteed $700,000 contest in the industry in football this coming Sunday. So sign up at fantasydraft.com, use the promo code HoopBall. Gets you a 7-day free membership, up to $1,000 in entry fees, and that main event, that Hooters $700,000 guaranteed, might go in your pocket. Maybe yours, Mr. Shark there, Apotria.
Listen. I might. Who knows? Maybe I'll retire after this week if I just win a big one. I'll quit the day job. I'll do the podcast. I'll be one of those guys who just doesn't need to work and full on DFS. That's the dream, isn't it? Isn't that, Coach? Isn't that what we all want to do? Just get out of there.
Well, I have now jumped into that world, so
that's what I'm saying. You're living the dream.
I'm living the dream, brother. It's DFS 24/7. So you got me, and hopefully, my big goal in this is to try to really develop our listenership and their confidence and get everybody making some good money, because there's a ton of people playing DFS hoops, and our small corner of the world of listeners that we're getting out there to. Definitely, we want to move the needle and get an edge. So we're in the middle of a 3-part series, or I should say a third of the way through it. If for those that didn't catch last week, you can always catch up if just anywhere pods are found. Last week we did the Atlantic and Central divisions. This week we're going to do the Southeast and Northwest. So we'll be going over 10 teams tonight and how all of the off-season moves, trades, draft choices, everything affects these teams DFS-wise. And again, this deep dive that we're doing is our motto: success occurs when opportunity meets preparation, and this is the preparation time. We're, believe it or not, dude, 4 days away from the first preseason game, which is just nuts. That is on the 30th, Houston versus the Shanghai Sharks. And then that gets everything rolling. And then the 3rd, 4th, 5th, that's when a ton of the preseason games come in, and you'll be able to play DFS on DraftKings and possibly FanDuel. I'm waiting for some information from FanDuel to confirm that, but DraftKings has confirmed they will have contests that 3rd, 4th, and 5th of October. So that gives us a full 2 weeks to build up a bankroll before the season opens on the 22nd. So that's going to be great. So we'll handle those 10 teams this week, and then our final preseason show prior to the actual beginning of the preseason itself will be next week with the Pacific and Southwest, with all the stacked teams out there like the Clippers, Lakers, and Rockets. So that will be great. Couple quick things before we get started, just a little small talk. It is official. There was, they had their meetings on Friday. NBA did. Adam Silver. They went over all of their things for the upcoming season, and they did officially rule that teams had to supply their starting lineup 30 minutes before tip, not 10 minutes. So that's a big plus for fantasy owners. Thank you, DFS world, to the NBA. So that'll help a little bit. Even the late games, when you're trying to do some roster switches, that'll give you a little bit more time rather than scrambling like a lunatic in that last 5 minutes before the game. So that's one good piece of news. Had you heard about that officially, Mike?
Yeah, of course. You can look at it like two different ways. You can look at it like that's great news, or it's kind of a lost edge in a way as well. It's sometimes being that guy that's sitting there waiting for the lineups to lock and monitoring the news that comes out 2-3 minutes before making that late switch or that late swap can be a huge difference maker. Sometimes you can get a guy that is getting substituted in because the guy's injured, and now he's playing 34 minutes instead of 18, and now he might only be 2% owned, 3% owned because a lot of people couldn't get there in time or didn't see the news. So, but I think overall it is good news. It's going to be a lot less late scratches. It's going to be a lot less people just having tanked lineups, nights ruined, and that's kind of the whole point with the NBA. And people want to know when they're showing up and they're buying tickets or whatever's going on. They're trying to make it as transparent as possible. But at the end of the day, I have to think there's some sort of gambling aspect involved when he made that decision.
There's no question about it. I think, obviously with, being able to wager on games becoming, it seems like a new state is added all the time. I think they're really taking that into consideration. And, the NBA's always been ahead of everybody else in pretty much everything they do, except for this bone I'd like to pick with the NBA, and I'd love to get your take. I've been on all over Twitter on this now for like the last month, and then Friday the news came down, and that really agitated me, and then today agitated me. But they have done really absolutely nothing except make it worse and more confusing regarding the tampering rules as it applies to free agency. And also the deadline with trades when it comes down to the draft. So we're back in that exact same ridiculous scenario where there's no possible way to monitor a human being speaking to a human being. No one's dumb enough at this point to send one front office to the other to send a text or an email, but verbalizing from one person to the other, you can't control that. So all they've done is increase the penalties by some money, which is, like a guy like Cuban with the and most of these owners, $500,000 to them is like $5 to us. Let's face it. And so I'm very disappointed, and we're going to be back in the same scenario next year at the draft, where the first, 5 of the first 10 guys go up there, and they already know they're on a different team. They get the hat. They have to do the interview. They're traded. I mean, it's just, I don't understand, with NBA always having the edge on everything else, why the heck they've done, gone to this level. And then I'll let you take the floor on it. The last thing today is like the cherry on the sundae. The Milwaukee Bucks, who Giannis Antetokounmpo plays for, said about their own player, of course, that they love Giannis. He's the cornerstone of their franchise. They're going to offer him a supermax deal. That he's part of the organization. They were fined $50,000 today by the NBA. That violates one of the tampering clauses because they mentioned they're going to offer their own damn player a supermax deal. Can you explain that to me, Mike?
No, I wish I could. It's actually ridiculous. The whole tampering thing. Like I'm right on board with you. I think it's ridiculous. The whole situation. In my head, I just imagine it like a 1960s or 70s like Italian mobster movie, where there's a guy that just shows up in a trench coat down a dark alley, and he just whispers to like Paul George, hey, Obama wants to see you, and he just shows up, or everything gets passed on through the guy, and there's no way that we can monitor him. Coaches, players, owners, they're all going to be able to do their own thing. It's a little ridiculous, all in all, and the whole Giannis situation is just laughable, because at the end of the day, who didn't know that was coming? Like, obviously they're going to sign their franchise cornerstone player who just won the MVP award to a supermax deal. It's Milwaukee.
Yeah, and how can you tamper with your own guy? I mean, seriously? I mean, I'm disappointed, because I've been barking about this for a long time, and I thought last week that they would address it a little bit, and all they've done is make it worse. So I don't know, man. Just one of those things, I guess, we're going to have to, just live with. And how it affects the DFS world, is, it doesn't seem like it does have immediate impact, but there are ramifications, of that, and the way that that's going to come down with, players being motivated and working with their agents. And I don't know. I'm just disappointed. Hopefully at some point they figure out how to rectify it.
I guess we can hope. But from what I'm seeing, it looks like they're only going to get harsher and harsher. I don't think this is what's a $50,000 fine doing to anybody anyway, especially a team at the end of the day. So
absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, even if you were going to fine them, you could like I just said with the Clippers before, you could have fined Bomber $5 million for tampering, and he still would have tampered to get Paul George.
Oh, no doubt. That's a drop in the bucket for a guy like that. But I don't know, man. For the NBA being the best and everything, this is just one area they just can't seem to get right. But I don't know if Silver will ever take my call. I could probably get his ass straightened out on this thing, but he just, for some reason, there's no return call. I don't know what the problem is, but anyway, this, so next Thursday, dude, do you realize though, next Thursday, we will complete our third part of our reviews, and then we'll be talking about pricing, because it'll be up on at least DraftKings for sure, and we're going to be talking about getting that bankroll started. I can't believe it's a week away.
Oh yeah, we're going to be winning people some money. Give me a few days of pricing. That's my favorite thing about like preseason and opening night is this pricing comes out a few days ahead, and that's a few days just to break it down, read beat writing reports, get your stats straight, get these averages on, and just go. Like it's awesome having a few days just to break down a slate, compared to just one night like every other day of the year. So it's these couple days we're gonna have an advantage, and we got to take it.
There's no question about it. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Since I am a full-time DFS guru now, self-imposed, I guess, I'm actually, I thought I'd share this with our listeners, and I know you and I haven't talked about this yet either, but I was thinking about, spending a good 4, 5, 6 hours and just crunching down like the main 5 or 6, 7-man rotations of each team and putting my predicted pricing in there just to see, once it does hit next week, where I had the biggest difference. And maybe, that won't jade me as much when I'm making my selection. You know what I'm saying? This way I'll see where there are gaps that I'm finding prior to allowing the pricing to jade me to think differently. So I'm going to give that a shot.
It sounds to me like you're just making, just like if you were to do regular season-long fantasy leagues, when you make your rankings for your draft, you're basically saying what you would pay for that guy. So yeah. That's pretty much, that's a good way to look at it. If you set yourself like the most I'd pay for this guy or the optimal price I'd like to pay for this guy, and then you can narrow your player pool down real fast like that. And anybody that listens to me or listened to me last season will say that's the first thing I do on a slate is I try to narrow down my player pool, eliminate some guys, put some guys on a little bit of a higher pedestal. And it really helps me make my selections at the end of the day, especially when I'm just trying to do like a single entry, or if I'm just trying to do a game stack. So I kind of like it. I like it. I think it's a good idea.
I'm going to give it a shot because, my strategy, I never play more than 2 or 3 lineups, and I'm looking, to really hit the guys that are going to hit it out of the park that night. So if anybody, I'm going to probably have those done by this weekend. So anybody that wants to share some of that info, just hit me up on Twitter at Joe Sarvadi. That's JoeSarvadi. I'm sure at Mike Apotria he'll have some in as well. That's MikeApotria, and we can throw some of those numbers around before they actually hit the board, and maybe that'll help help some people get out to a quick start. So, all right, brother. Before we get too far behind, let's jump in and get started on these teams. What do you say?
Well, I'm born ready. You know that, Coach. Come on, let's do this.
All right. The first team on the docket today, you can run with it, brother. Atlanta Hawks.
Oh, yes. Young team, played at an extremely high pace last season, so we know that they're going to be loaded with stats. Also, one of the league's worst defenses, so we know anybody playing them is going to score a lot of points as well. So they're definitely going to be one of the teams on our radar. I can 100% guarantee that. And I'm actually, for season long and DFS, I'm expecting a big year out of Trae Young. Just how he turned it on in the second half of the season last year. I'm just expecting him to light the world on fire. Just tons of points, tons of assists, all those beautiful counting stats that we like to see. I'm just expecting really big things from him. John Collins, another guy that we're going to be targeting. Those are the primary spots. I'm not too keen on playing, your Kevin Huerters, when Bazemore was there, it was more of just that GPP flyer here and there in the right matchups. But as far as the big names, we're still looking at the same 2 guys for me. It's John Collins and it's Trae Young. I don't know where you're at with them, but that's the only 2 guys I'm probably gonna have a ton of interest in going into the year. And then just about every single position facing them is what I'm gonna be looking at.
I'm with you. Those 2 guys are on my, top 25 list for guys to target early. And Trae Young arguably outplayed Luka the second half of last year and really stepped it up. I mean, this is 100% his team. As far as John Collins, he had an injury-riddled first half last year, but when he played, man, I had him the night he threw a 2020 game on the board. I mean, and he's such a young guy too. I mean, this Atlanta Hawks team is really building a nice foundation for sure. The other positive thing with Trae Young is, his percentages have a tendency sometimes not to be too strong. Again, we don't care. We're looking at that 48-minute snippet of how many shots went in, how many foul shots went in, how many fantasy points did you put on the board. So Trae Young's a monster for me. And John Collins, I think, if he stays healthy, obviously gets dinged a lot, but when he's healthy, he is a game changer. The rest of the squad, I think for me, it's going to be a very wait and see type scenario. I'm Kevin Huerter, Cam Reddish, Alan Crabb's new to the team. DeAndre Hunter is supposed to, bring some defense to the squad. He's not a great shooter, so I don't really see him making a huge DFS impact. Jabari Parker, could add some offensive statistics to the board and maybe be one of those reach plays on a specific night, depending on the matchup, that can be real beneficial for you. He's a guy that does put up fantasy points per minute with the best of them. Not a defender, but he will get that done. At center, Alex Len also is a guy that is usually cheap, and if they're playing a team where there's not a lot of good defensive rebounding on the other side, Len can be useful. So I'm with you. Young Collins, for sure, and then maybe bargain basement with a few of these guys early on because they're going to get the usage.
I can see targeting Len. For me, when it comes down to Len, it's going to be matchup dependent, and it's going to be against teams that primarily don't play a lot of small ball, because I think the reason why they brought Parker in was when they wanted to slide John Collins over to the 5, they could play Parker as like a stretch 4. And on the small ball lineups, they're probably going to run that lineup out there a lot more often than not, compared to Collins at the 4 and Len at the 5. So in the matchups where we know he's going to have to play big minutes, maybe they're playing Portland, or I know we don't like to target guys against Rudy Gobert, but just that kind of scenario, that's when I could see myself maybe taking a gamble on Len. But it would also probably have to be on fantasy draft, where I could play, like a ton of centers if I wanted, So it really depends on the site and the matchup for me. On a site where you can only play like one center, it's going to be really hard pressed for me to buy into Len unless it's a fantastic matchup, or unless Collins is hurt, something goes on.
I'm with you, and is on the bandwagon with both guys, just like we are, Young and Collins. And when you look at the pace that they play at and the lack of defense, I mean, it's that's going to be something we'll talk about, because you may want to fade in certain scenarios if the ownership is just sky high. So that's going to be something to keep a close eye on as well.
Yeah, I mean, and looking at Trae Young, I'm expecting a high price tag on him. I'm expecting, it could even be a slow start. Like we have to remember, yes, he was a rookie and all that, but some guys just start the season a little bit slower, take a little bit longer to kind of get their gears going. And, it's only his second year, so we're going to have to, see if he can bring that momentum he had in the second half into the first half this year, and then keep it for a full year. So there's going to be a few things. I might take the wait and see approach on Trae Young for a game or two. Really depending on the price. I mean, if it's just stupid low where I can't ignore it, he's going to be in probably a lot of my lineups. But if he's priced where I think he's going to be priced, 80, 84, 85, I'm probably going to wait and see.
See, I disagree with you there. I think he was a rookie last year. There was a lot of unsettled issues with the Hawks. I mean, this dude is ripped the jersey off in the Superman uniforms underneath. I think he is coming into this season ready to score the first bucket of the first game and go from there. So I'm on him early. I think, and I think that price might be a little low there. I think he may be 87. I think he might, he's getting a ton of respect out there, and he's going to be on my first lineup. Let me put it to you that way.
Okay. Hey, I can't knock you for it. At the end of the day, we know what kind of numbers he could put up, and he's one of those guys that when he's hot, he's hot. He's gonna light the gym on fire, and he's gonna put up a memorable night. So I'm on board. I mean, listen, I'm not gonna knock you. Like I said, if I'm doing multiple lineups, I'm not gonna sit there and say I'm gonna fade Trae Young. I will have some, but there's gonna be a few other situations that I'm like licking my chops at right now, waiting for kind of. I'm just know there's gonna be low pricing on a couple guys. So, I don't want to be a spoiler alert. A couple of them are probably gonna be tomorrow. There might be one or two later on in this show, but there's definitely a couple guys I have my eye on. And when it comes to, like you said, ownership, I think a lot of it's gonna gravitate towards guys like Trae Young. So
no doubt. All right, I get the dubious honor of starting the Charlotte Hornets, who definitely, without question, are the worst team in the league. If you saw that top 100 players that came out, SI, I think, or ESPN, or both of them, I don't know. But it just came out, and the amazing thing was not one single Charlotte player made the top 100. How is that possible? I mean, isn't that nuts?
I'm not that shocked. I mean, if we just sit here and we'll go down their roster, we'll be like, yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
Bridges might be able to crack in there. I think Bridges should be able to crack in there. Rozier's not ready yet, but just the athleticism and the star potential from Bridges, I think he's worth a top 100. He's got to be like at least 80, 90 something.
Yeah, no, that not one of them made the top 100. But as far as Charlotte goes, someone has to soak up the usage. Somebody is going to produce good DFS numbers, or at least decent DFS numbers. I mean, obviously, I guess you look at Rozier and Bridges as being the top two choices. I think that you got a big sneaky pick here that I'm going to give is one of my on that short list of guys that could throw up 30 fantasy points and be super cheap, and that's Dwayne Bacon. I think Bacon and Monk are going to get some time, and some minutes at that shooting guard spot. And I think, on a given night, and I give the edge to Bacon right now, those guys could put up decent numbers. Rozier, again, we'll see. He certainly has potential. I don't know, being the focal point, that's going to be, he may struggle for a while, but that'll be interesting. The old guys on the squad, Batum, Marvin Williams, Cody Zeller, who's not really that old, but, Bismack Biyombo. I mean, none of those guys, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. I mean, I wouldn't count on any of them DFS-wise. Now, maybe somebody rises up a little bit, and somebody's going to have to put points on the board and get some stats there. But, I think Charlotte will be the most faded team generally on almost every slate, unless, Bridges or Rozier or Bacon or somebody just decides that all of a sudden they're gonna play some basketball. But definitely the worst team in the league, and probably they're going to get blown out a lot, so it's going to create games that they're in decrease DFS value because they're not going to stay with their guys. The other team's not going to stay with their main guys in a 20-30 point game. So, man, Charlotte to me is just a giant X for the most part most of the time.
Yeah, I think you hit it. It's Rozier, it's Bridges for me. Even Cody Zeller is not a guy that I'm really looking to touch either. But looking at Rozier, the new home, the big minutes increase we're going to see, his per 36 career numbers. We're looking at 13.8 points, 4.6 assists, and this is what kind of piques my interest in surprising stat. Per 36, he's averaging 6.2 rebounds. So now we're talking about a guy who's putting up pretty solid assists, good rebounds, especially from his position. And 14 points isn't anything write home about, but we're talking about him playing on a Boston team where no matter what, he was basically playing with two or three guys that are going to shoot the ball more than him. whether he was even on the second unit or the first unit. So, and we
Definitely.
got to remember a couple of those memorable starts that he won people tons of money with when he kind of took over for Kyrie. So
And in the
a guy.
playoffs, he had a hell of a playoffs run. So
He's
yeah, I
not
mean,
afraid to shoot. I don't think. We know how badly he wanted out just to kind of show what he can do.
right.
He's a guy that I'm kind of pegging. He's going to be a little bit around that 6K range, 58, and I can see him getting up there in 35, 40. I mean, if he's going to rebound like this, if the only problem is the assists aren't going to. There's not going to be a ton of them. Let's be real. There's no one on this team could score the ball. Unless it's like an ISO play or, even Zeller on a pick and roll. That's probably your best bet if you want to get an assist on this team. But he's, it's not hard for a point guard to get, 5 when they have the ball in their hands that much. So I'm expecting decent numbers from him. Again, it's kind of that same situation we said with Trae Young. We don't care about the field goal percentage. He has a terrible field goal percentage. I'll harp on that for season long people. Absolutely terrible. He's going to turn the ball over a ton. So those two things,
the turnovers in DFS hurt you too. So that's a concern. And, and the other thing is the blowout factor. I just don't know. I mean, do you stick with them deep into games when you're down, 30 points or whatever the case may be? But I think you're right. I think he could be a guy that could actually throw a couple triple doubles on the board before the season's over. Just with his knack to hit the glass and go. And so definitely a guy you got to keep on your radar.
Yeah, and, speaking on the blowouts, I don't think he's going to sit out, to be honest. I mean, this is a guy that wanted to get a new home so he could play big minutes. So yeah. I got to imagine that. And let's be real, Charlotte's not going to be exactly selling out crowds as it is, let alone if people are watching, your 9th and 10th guy off the bench, 3 nights a week. It's not going to help them.
Yeah, well, we'll see. They are definitely going to have a rough year. That's for damn sure. That's the one thing I do know. No doubt.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I mean, I didn't really touch on Bridges too much, but he's a guy that I think we can look at when you need to. He's never going to be too high of a salary. He's going to be a good cash game play more than a tournament play, in my opinion. Yeah. I think he'll have a few good explosive scoring nights here and there, but as far as season long, I absolutely love him this year. He's a guy that can put up a little bit of everything for counting stats, so he's definitely a guy that should be on your radar for season. And if you're a big cash game player, definitely on your radar for DFS.
Oh, he'll be very high on my list of first guys in because I think his price will be fair, and I think he's the best player on the entire team, flat out. So I think they'll feature him, and he's an explosive guy. So I'll tell you, he played a stretch, believe it or not, in the summer league in Vegas, and I was surprised that he played. I'm thinking, man, they're playing their best player in summer league. That's not a good sign for the organization. But he had a couple of stretches with some just windmill dunks, and he looked, like one of the best guys out there. I expect him to have the biggest increase, no doubt about it.
All right. Well, that's all I got for the Hornets. I don't know how much you want to talk about a team that's going to probably score 69 or 72 points a night, but I think that's all it's worth talking about. Going on to the next one. Who do we got, Coach? What do we got next?
Well, I don't want to see the crying Jordan when Charlotte's only got 7 wins at the end of the year, but we have the Miami Heat, so that I'm excited to discuss because I think they're going to be a pretty cool team. We've got a quick interview here that Bam Adebayo, everybody's DFS and fantasy darling right now, is talking about when things really came together at the end of last year, and he realized that he was ready to go.
When it clicked,
yeah,
I would say the end of the season last year, it sort of kind of clicked for me, and Spo started running actions through me, and I started making plays and finding players and helping my teammates, and we was out there having fun. But once he, I guess you could say, let the leash go a little bit and let me play, it kind of expanded my game and made me start becoming who I want to be.
There you go. As you can hear, it was, when did things click for Bam? And Bam, talking about that, saying, okay, he belongs, he's ready. They're going to give him the ball. The organization, obviously, with the trading of Whiteside, has confidence in him to be their man long term. So, with everybody else, I'm high on him. I know he doesn't have much range, but his mid-range jumper improved quite a bit. His rebounding, block shots. I think he's a good fantasy points per minute, and now he doesn't have to worry about Whiteside and that weird rotation with Olynyk and the way all of that was working. So, yes, that'll be exciting. I think Miami has some big questions still. Obviously, Jimmy Butler being, the main man there now is going to be a high ownership guy early on, and he'll be the focal point of the team. But the rest of the rotation, what Riley and Spoelstra how they're gonna make up the foundation of this squad going into the season is going to be very interesting. You had Justice Winslow coming out last week saying he wanted to play point guard. He felt like he should be the point guard, which was very odd for a guy to come out and talk noise like that, especially with Riley and Spoelstra. That doesn't usually go over too well. They still have Goran Dragic there. There's been constant rumors that eventually they're going to get Chris Paul from the Thunder in some kind of trade. So, there's still some unsteadiness with what that rotation is going to be. I think Adebayo and Butler obviously are locks for being in your rotation for DFS. But after that, you got to look at Dragic, Winslow, Waiters, the rookie Tyler Hero, who I think is going to be in the rotation off the bench. He's that good. And you get a little bit of Derrick Jones Jr., a little James Johnson, a little Kelly Olynyk. They picked up Myers Leonard this year, and so there's a lot of guys that are going to be sharing minutes in there, and that scares me off the squad until they figure out exactly what that rotation is going to be. But early on, I think you go Bam and Butler, and then you just got to wait until the rest washes out.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, just because this isn't a team that played at like an incredibly fast pace or was known for scoring. I mean, they got rid of the veteran Dwayne Wade, the legend himself, has retired, so he was part of the reason. He didn't want to run at that age, so that wasn't going to be generally part of their game plan. And just I kind of like Winslow playing point personally.
He did well with it last year. He really did.
And I mean, what are you really losing with Dragic? Playing point guard. He's not a pass first point guard. He's a slasher, and they don't really need that. I'd rather have the guy with more size, the better defender that could handle the ball up to the half court point and manage an offense. Still, he's not maybe the best point guard, but I don't think Dragic is either. So, but I'm with you. It's going to be Butler. I'm keeping an eye on. It's going to be tons of Bam. Everyone's going to be on Bam. Everyone loves Bam. The hype train is off the rails at this point.
Yeah.
I mentioned always kind of having a pivot, and I already have one in mind that we're going to talk about in just a few games. So I don't want to spoil too much, but there's a guy I think that will undoubtedly be cheaper, lower owned, and will put up very similar stats as Bam. So, that's kind of where I'm at with Miami. I'm not really touching anybody on the wing, maybe the occasional Dion Waiters in a GPP. If somebody else is sitting, just because we know when he gets any opportunity to take 18, 20 shots, he can do that in a quarter if you give him the chance. So that's all I got.
And I'll tell you, I don't know about out of the gate because it's going to take some time, but at some point, Tyler Hero is a guy to really watch. I mean, he was flat out. I know I've mentioned on a couple of the earlier shows, but he was flat out the best shooter in the NBA Summer League this year. I mean, there was no one that shot the ball as impressively off the dribble, off the screen, moving without the ball, catching it on, coming off the curl pick, whatever it was, as soon as he got squared, man, that ball was up, and it was that quick, like Klay Thompson release that you can't do anything about, and he was knocking them down. So that's a guy to, maybe not initially, but somebody to keep a big circle around going forward.
Oh, he definitely boosted his dynasty shares just from his performance in Summer League. Like, you could just tell this kid coming out he's going to be a very good NBA player. Just a natural stroke. Even I caught myself watching his high school highlights on YouTube about a month back, and just what he was able to do at all levels. It seems like he just always is in complete control of his body, whether it's a fadeaway or like you said, his off the dribble shooting. He's always in complete control. He always has good eye contact on the rim. It's just a really good polished player coming out at a very young age, and one of those guys that just passed the eye test. Like you could just tell he's going to be a good player just by watching him. Ignore all the stats, just watch the guy play, and he can play.
No doubt. And Miami took him super high, and I remember at the draft I liked him, but I thought, man, that's super high to take a shooting guard there. But after seeing him and really watching him out there on the floor, man, he's the real deal, no doubt about it. So, but I'll tell you, the other thing about Miami, you've got to always keep in mind, it is the Miami culture to play good D. They're not ever a super pace team, and they're very loyal to their guys like Dragic and these guys. So I'm still thinking, you got to watch the pace of play in their games and be a little more concerned. I'm a little less likely just to throw somebody in unless the matchup really fits. I can't believe Udonis Haslem is still playing, though. Isn't that amazing?
Oh, you mean the Frank Gore of basketball?
I just can't believe it, dude. Hey, in a sports center, it was Udonis Haslem quote just came out, I think.
Yeah, I will never retire is what it said.
That's it. I'm playing till I drop. I love it.
He's a guy. I think at this point it's just having another coach on staff. Yeah, but he's also probably like the locker room narc. Maybe he's like the old guy that's trying to just blend in with the young kids, and then he runs back and he's just like, I think these kids are going to go out tonight and go to the club a little bit too long. And
I don't know. He looks like he's the first guy at the club. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I heard some things when I was in Miami, and I don't think he's really shy to get out there and have some fun. But good for him, man. He's played this many years. To keep your body in that kind of shape for that many years is beyond insane. So, Absolutely. All right, dude, you've got the Oklahoma City Thunder, and I'll tell you, if you haven't, there's a great book out there called Boomers, and it's about the whole Thunder organization and how they came about. It's a fantastic read. I highly recommend it. But you've got it, man. You got the Thunder.
Okay, so I've been harping on one guy that I'm gonna have my eye on. You probably heard me mention it about 15 times already, and that's the Aussie. Steven Adams is a guy that I am expecting very, very big things from this season, and he's not going to be a high price. He's never going to be over-owned, especially anybody that played DFS for the past few seasons knows he's pretty much a cash play, unless he's playing somebody like the Nets or Brooklyn when they had their awful defense against centers, or the Hawks. So those are the days that you can really kind of target him. But a guy that's going to see a massive boost in rebounds, in my opinion. We're talking. He's entering his 7th season with the Thunder, and last season he actually got his career high at 9.5 rebounds per game. So you're talking about a guy career high 9.5. It's kind of I wouldn't say low for a center we've seen, but he's not exactly a stretch 5. So there's no reason why his rebounds shouldn't be hitting double digits at some point. And we're talking, he had an offensive rebound percentage of only 12.9%, and his defensive was 13.3%. So his defensive rebounding percentage was barely higher than his offensive, and that's like extremely unusual for any center's defensive rebounding to be so low. And he literally had one of the league's worst, and for any center that played 65 games. So all this, what that tells me is that it's that same thing I've been saying. It's him letting Russell Westbrook grab the rebound so that Westbrook can push the tempo, push the pace, jumpstart the offense. And it's just evidence when you just compare those numbers to Westbrook's, who averaged 11.1 rebounds last season, and his defensive rebounding percentage was 25.5%.
Yeah.
It's not like it was compared to Adams is offensive, because he only averaged 3.6 on offensive boards. So
sure,
it's just right there in the numbers, and it's showing you that
somebody's going to pick up all those rebounds. That's
exactly.
True.
And I'm going to guess it's the guy that was kind of just doing the boxing out, letting the other guy grab the board. That's where I'm going, especially with the new stretch four being Danilo Gallinari, a guy that's never too close to the basket.
Right.
For me, it just screams breakout year for Steven Adams, and he's going to be a guy that I want to take advantage of early on. I don't know about you, but I'm all over and I'm buying in with all my shares on Steven Adams right now.
Nice. Well, I mean, I'm high on him. I agree with you, and I think your numbers back it up. I did read a blurb by the Thunder. It was just last week, where they did say that they expect an increased role from Nerlens Noel. Now, I don't think that's going to really come and hurt Adams that much. I think they'll, just get Noel a little bit more run in key times. But I did see that, something to keep in mind. It's so hard to figure what the Thunder are going to do, because at any given moment, I think they could trade Paul or Gallinari or maybe even Adams. I don't know, but they're definitely in monster rebuild, and have 15 picks over the next, literally 15 picks over the next 4 years. So, I mean, they are loaded up for picks, and I think how the Chris Paul and Shea, how that's going to work is going to be interesting. I think they'll play both of them together a lot, and so you may see an uptick on both of their DFS stats. I think there's going to be usage for both of them. People forget Paul. He's got the best assist to turnover ratio in the history of the game. So it's not like he can't throw up a 12-13 assist game. Being away from Harden now. I mean, people are all talking about the Harden Westbrook thing on the other side, but I'm with you, man. I think there's some stats to be had. They're never a pace team. Obviously, losing Westbrook, they'll slow down a little bit, but I'm not afraid to play Paul or Shea or your man Adams. And I think Gallinari has proven, if you play him on the right night, he can be a monster. He's sort of a boomer bust guy. I've also played him when he's just sort of faded into the sunset and not done much. So, but after that, they've got very, very, very little of a bench. So, how does that play into it? We'll see. But it's going to be interesting. But I wouldn't cross them off the list early on, because I do think they will showcase those guys if they are going to trade them.
Speaking on the Adams thing, I think there's a decent, if not very good chance he's traded. At the end of the day, Nerlens Noel could have went elsewhere, but I'm thinking the Thunder said, hey, why don't you just hang out a little bit? You're young. We want to see what we have in you, and there's a good chance we're shipping out all these guys anyway, so you might be starting halfway through the year. So I wouldn't be shocked if Adams were to go, Paul to go, Gallinari. Obviously, those are the first guys that they're going to be looking to move. But yeah, I know, we don't get to see a healthy Chris Paul very often anymore. So that's another thing. Like you said, I'm glad you brought him up, because healthy Chris Paul playing 34 minutes without anybody really else next to him. Yeah, we're gonna see some good numbers, I think. And for the time being, probably be a little bit underpriced as well. I don't think the algorithms are going to really take into account what he was doing on like a night-to-night basis. Because, I mean, the last spot that he was in before then was the Clippers, and he was also playing next to a few guys over there. He has literally no offensive competition other than Danilo Gallinari, so he could chuck away if he really wants to, and that's something that we're going to have to take advantage on early.
I agree. I mean, I'm not afraid to play the Thunder. I mean, I've been to a decent amount of games there. I think arguably have, possibly the best fan base in the league. They're always sold out. They're loud. They back their team, and I think these guys can win some games. So I am not as down on the Thunder as a lot of the touts are right now, and I think you can get some quality guys in the right matchup, especially in a pace-up scenario.
Yep, and another guy that we can pretty much cross off their list, and I'm a little upset about it, is I kind of want to see Andre Roberson play again, man. This guy's knee just can't get right. I feel terrible for him. Every time he tries to come back, it just seems like setback after setback, and one's got to imagine what that knee looks like on the inside after all this. And he was, if one can imagine if they had him last year, they could have done some bigger things. I know this team started falling apart at the end with Paul George's injuries, but in his prime, one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, bar none.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole in DFS, but
No.
if I was a real coach, I would want him out there suited up because he's going to shut you down, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and that's again, I guess we could say with the Hawks, a team that we're going to be targeting opposing teams against. They're going to play a fast pace, like you said. I don't expect it to be anywhere near what it was last season. Just Chris Paul can handle running a system point guard. He can take the ball up, slow the game down, create for his teammates. So not as much as like Westbrook, who would just attack the rim, make the defense collapse, dump it off to Adams, or kick it back out to the 3-point line. So I'm expecting it to be a little bit slower, but still above the league average is where I'd put him. Probably like 13, 12.
That's why you're the Shark, man. That's why you are the Shark. All right, how about I go with sort of a boring team as far as discussing, because they didn't really do anything different other than sign their guys, and that's the Orlando Magic. Basically, everybody's intact. Their starting five is back. They added a couple of guys, Al-Farouq Aminu, they paid a bunch of money to, which was somewhat of a little bit of a head scratcher. But, they're going to have their regular players. I mean, Vukovic on a given night, I took down a really nice GPP with Vuk on one of his monster nights where he's banging threes, and he's a terrific foul shooter, and when he's hitting the glass, I mean, he can get it done. So Vuk's always in play, but you do have to be a little wary of the fact that Mo Bamba is back this year. He missed pretty much all of last year hurt, and there's no doubt they want to get him some minutes. He himself, before he got hurt, was a fine points per minutes guy, because he gets, he'll get 3-4 blocks before you can blink an eye, and he really converts well on the paint. So on nights where Vuk gets a break, Bamba's going to definitely be in my lineups, but Vuk's always a top option. Aaron Gordon falls in that small group of guys that I can never figure out or get right. Again, there's like just 4 or 5 guys that just seem like sometimes they'll have monster games. Sometimes they just get in foul trouble or just disappear. But, obviously tremendous talent on a given night with the right matchup can do some really good things. Not one of my favorite go-to DFS guys, but I would not blame you if you used him. Jonathan Isaac, up-and-comer. I know he's high on a lot of touts lists, sort of expecting a breakout year for him. Again, when I played him last year, at least, he was a little bit more boomer bust. He did throw some good games on the board. Still not sure he's going to be the top 2 or 3 options there initially. Maybe now that he is getting his feet under him, I know they want to build around him, so I may go a little over-owned early on. Evan Fournier, phenomenal. FIBA shot the lights out, and the guy can definitely shoot. My concern with DFS is he is scoring dependent for sure. You very rarely see a game from Fournier where he does much rebounding, assists, or steals. I mean, he's just pretty much flat out a scorer and a shooter, and a darn good one at that. But a little bit soft on the periphery stats. So I'm a little concerned there. And they did re-sign Terrence Ross to a ton of money as well, which, again, head scratcher to me. But he's obviously, with that paycheck, going to have a good role on the squad from the shooting side. They didn't address the point guard situation, which, I mean, again, head scratch. Explain that one to me. DJ Augustine, I remember watching him play at Texas. It seems like forever ago. He's been around forever. He's been a backup forever, and then he's been the starting point guard and done decently, but not really a strong DFS option in my opinion. Markelle Fultz, everybody's all googly about him this last week or so. He's been in the news. They did sign him to picked up that option. They're planning on getting him some minutes. Michael Carter-Williams grabs a bunch of minutes for him too. So all of that to me tells me, giant stop sign pretty much all the way around. So really, other than Vukovic, for me, Orlando is one of my least favorite DFS teams. I'm not crazy about their pace. I'm not crazy about, the periphery stats that those guys can put up. And I think they'll have a deep enough bench that no one's going to really light it up. So I am not an Orlando Magic guy this coming year, at least not from the get-go.
I think we can move on. I think you just, it's Vucevic or it's nothing for me. Occasionally, I will play a little Evan Fournier because he's a good tournament player. When he does, have those like 26 to 28 actual scoring point nights, chips in like a couple of 2 assists, 2 rebounds, 3 rebounds, whatever it may be, a couple threes, a steal. It can get you up there at 35, 40. He's usually never priced above like 5,800, which is fair. When you're talking about a guy that can, give you about 7-8x return at 5,800, can slot him in at shooting guard or small forward usually. He has his spots, but again, not something I'm going to go out of my way to play. It's Vucevic, and it's going to be matchup dependent when it comes to him. Just because it's just like anything, we want to target the guys at the best possible matchups, and he's a guy that we know can just break a slate. I love targeting him personally against Philly. He's got great career numbers against Philly. And I think it's a little revenge narrative. So I think that might have something to do with it, but it's something I always keep circled on my calendar is when they travel over there to Philly and he plays. He usually comes out and performs in a big way.
That's a good point. I'll definitely have to circle that one too. Those little narratives make a big difference. I know some people make fun of narratives. I think they're for real. I mean, sometimes it's a little silly, but there are areas where teams definitely want to show out against former squads and that kind of thing. So we'll see how it goes. It's weird though. I've heard a lot of people that I respect in the industry picking the Magic to finish, like 4th in the East. There's even one publication that has them 3rd. And, that surprises me. I guess there's something to be said about having everybody intact from last year. And they did make the playoffs last year. But, it'll be interesting to see. I think they needed to upgrade a little bit more. And, I really don't see that anywhere across the board with them.
Yeah, I think it has more to do with just how much worse the East got this season.
Could be.
With a lot of their stars going out there. Maybe that's the only thing I can justify it with if I wanted to play a little devil's advocate. But, I'm almost a little upset that we even talked about the Magic this long. They're just so unsexy when it comes to fantasy.
They are.
With just their few, you're never happy about having any one of those guys other than Vucevic. And we're talking about a guy that's coming off of a career year. He's been in Orlando for a little while, just signed his deal and got paid.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he comes back down to earth a little bit. Still going to be a phenomenal player, don't get me wrong. But I'm not expecting the same numbers he put up last season.
I'm not either. I think the regression monster will take a little bite there. I mean, when you're getting up there a little bit in age. He's still in his prime, but he's getting a little older, and you get that big deal. I just think there's that mental push isn't quite there. So yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on, and Bomba's emergence too. I mean, that might be another team that doesn't see a whole lot of my DFS sheet. They may get skipped over on the NBA ticket lineup here for me, no doubt about it. All right,
You
boss,
want
you
to watch
want
DJ Augustine pick and rolls? Come on.
to? Yeah, exactly. You want to take on the wonderful Washington Wizards without John Wall for this season?
Yes, I do. It's like you lined this up perfectly for me, Coach, because I mentioned before, maybe pivoting off of Bam to another guy, and it's gonna be Thomas Bryant, man.
Ah,
I'm a big TB fan.
me too, man. I
I'm
am
expecting
too.
big things from him. I mean, just talking about his per 36 numbers last season: 18.2 points, 11 rebounds, 1.6 blocks.
Nice.
That's those are pretty good numbers. I mean, just looking at that from like a raw points perspective,
And
we're
that
talking about.
wasn't really being the starting center for a good portion of the season. Yeah.
Well, that's yeah, and that's I would say you're probably getting pretty close to what his averages could be given per 36. He probably won't play 36 minutes, maybe more along like 33, 34. But I'm expecting nightly doubles, a couple blocks or a block and a half. It seems about right, and you're gonna have those occasional nights where he's gonna have these big scoring. I mean, this is a guy that. Again, per 36 would average 0.8 3-pointers as well. So he's not afraid to shoot a little bit from outside. So I'm expecting him to be a pretty big focal point of this offense, on top of obviously the big name Bradley Beal. So I'm all aboard the Thomas Bryant train, and I saved a spot for you if you want to jump.
I'm with you, bro. I'm on. I love Thomas Bryant. I think he plays hard. I liked him in the summer league when he played for the Lakers 3 years back. I said this guy's got a place in this league, and he almost didn't make the league, and now he's going to probably be a second option on an NBA team. So I'm with you, man.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a guy that, the Lakers basically threw him out. They just wouldn't give him a chance. And
No.
I guess so. They don't have any kind of front office that can scout a center because they bring in Dwight Howard and then they ship out guys like, these little diamonds in the rough like Zubac and Bryant and, very capable, serviceable centers, and they bring in Dwight Howard. I'm confused about that situation, but as far as for Washington, that's pretty much all I want to touch. I'm probably gonna botch this right now, and I apologize, but Rui Muchimura is a guy that I am very high on as far as an actual basketball standpoint. I think he's a very good basketball player. I think he's going to transition very well into the NBA, and I'm going to have my eye on him.
Yes.
But I don't. Where can we go right off the rip? Probably not. He's probably going to take like a good month or two to really kind of adjust and even be able to play big minutes. I'm talking big minutes for a rookie being like 28 to 30. So I'm expecting probably more around that 22 range, 23 range to start the season for a little while, but he's going to be a guy that we're going to see is going to be shooting well probably, and he's going to earn his minutes as the season goes on.
Well, I'm a Hashimura fan. I think he's NBA ready. I think he's 30 minutes a night from the first tip in the first game, and he is one of those guys I'll probably make my at a decently first lineups. He is NBA ready. I didn't realize it as good, as he was at Gonzaga, because they had multiple, good players there. But watching him in the summer league, I mean, he just took control of the floor out there as far as, in sections of close games, and just looked like a veteran. So I'm super high on him. I think, if you look at the backups at the power forward and center for the Wizards, they have Moritz Wagner, Ian Mahinmi, Davis Bertans, that's Davis, the brother, and Justin Anderson, really. That's it. So it's really the Bryant and Hashimura show, and I'm not afraid to play those guys a ton. They'll be a lot of my lineups, especially when they're a little cheaper early in the season. I'm very excited about them. Beal's always going to be one of the highest guys, percentage ownership. He's going to be super high priced. Usage is probably going to, he may lead the league in usage this year, with Harden and Westbrook being on the same team now. I think he's obviously on any given night can be the anchor to your team, without question. But after that, it's just Washington's just not one of the better teams. Can't believe they kept Scott Brooks as the coach. I think he's done an awful job there, but he's there. Be my guest between Ish Smith, Troy Brown, all these other guys, Jordan McRae. I mean, it's, when you want to use your big bucks on Beal, you got to play Beal. Hashimura and Brian, I think, are going to be great deals for fantasy. And after that, pass.
I think when it comes to Hashimura, I'm looking at like a pivot to Bryant. I never like to play two members of the same front court in the same lineup. So, and maybe in a couple lineups where I'm not playing Bryant, maybe I'm playing Bam instead of him, or whoever else. I'll throw him in one just because it would correlate a little better with my whole overall scheme. But I wouldn't be sleeping on my guy Davis Bertans, man. I think he's going to siphon a few more minutes than you're really expecting.
Did you just say your guy Davis Bertans?
Listen, you come from a pop system. You got something going for you. I mean, we've seen just about every one of those fives that they've had. I would say, other than Tiago Splitter, leave and be fairly successful. So,
isn't this Bertans' brother?
No, this is Spurs Bertans.
Okay, where's the other Bertans then? Because he's got a shooting brother as well.
Yeah, I think I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure the other. Yeah, I think he is actually a shooting guard. I'm not too sure, but no, Davis plays for the Washington Wizards, and this is a guy who used to. I think last season he averaged like 1.6 or 1.9 threes per game. Somebody can come at me on Twitter if I got my stat wrong, but he is not a minutes, and he is a very, very easily coached player. So, and he can play the 4 and the 5. So, I mean, I'm expecting him to cut into the rookies' probably minutes a little bit more than I would expect him to come into Bryant's. But that's the only thing that's kind of putting a ceiling on Hashimura for me. I think he's ready to play 30 minutes. I think he's fully ready to play like 32, 34, close out fourth quarters, and be a contributing member to the team. But there's other guys there that are a little bit more experienced, and that he could probably maybe even learn a thing or two from. So that's the only thing that's kind of tempering my expectations on him. That's it. But otherwise, I'm all in. He's a guy I'm targeting late in drafts in my season-long leagues. So we'll probably be hyping on that hype train at some point through the season. I just think for the first few games, I'm going to get my Thomas Bryant shares in there, and then I'll start kind of gravitating a little bit back.
And you are right. He was traded for DeMarre Carroll from the Spurs at the end of the season. So interesting. See if he gets in there at 37% three-point shooter, which I thought he was better than that actually. But
no, he took a lot of them. He would shoot a lot of threes. He would make I think it was. If you're looking at him, let me know. I think it was 1.6 or 1.9 threes per game. But I know he used to he used to jack them. He used to take a ton of them. So he's not afraid to shoot.
He's not afraid to shoot at all. Yeah, this actually projects him to take 5 threes a game and shoot 41% from three. So there, you may have a little sneaker sleeper there, brother.
Oh yeah. Listen, I do the DFS. I do the season long too, though. I'm always on these guys. Like when I was speaking about Bridges earlier, it's just kind of uncovering those little stats that other people glance over. There's a lot more obvious moves to be made. But yeah, I think Hashimura's upside's higher, but Bertans is a guy that's going to play. He's a very valuable player to have. So I fully expect him there.
Interesting. I got hijinks by the Bertans brothers. They got me. All right.
They're sneaky.
Well, we're going to move to Denver, and we've got a clip here, a little discussion recently with Michael Porter Jr. and how he's feeling about coming into a season here where he hasn't played in about 2 years. So let's listen in to Michael.
I mean, there's no restrictions for me out there. I just want to get out there and play. Obviously within the rotation, I got to play every minute, but, I'm hoping to go out there and just do my thing with the team. And, winning speaks volumes, so we're just going out there to win and play together as a team.
How are you feeling? Are you feeling okay?
Yeah, I feel good. And I just can't wait to really, test myself in a real game because I haven't played in the game in a while, so I'm really excited to play in a real game.
All right, man. And, the great enigma, is Michael Porter Jr. going to be a player or not? What do you think on that subject, Michael?
I mean, I like him. I think he's an incredible athlete. He was one of the guys that was potentially being talked about as the number one overall pick.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the college, season, and even just coming out of high school, he had almost like Zion type hype coming out of high school. This kid, Michael Porter Jr., you got to watch him play. His family's full of athletes. He's got natural athleticism. He can shoot. He can pass. He can drive. So he has a lot going for him. But how much is he going to contribute? Injury prone. I believe he had some sort of shutdown or procedure during the offseason already.
Yeah, he didn't play in the summer league at all.
Yeah, so there, that's not bone. And then he's got all this competition when he comes back. I mean, they have plenty of guys that are on the wing now. They're bringing in Grant now to also play a little bit of the power forward. Yeah. That's where I kind of see him succeeding more because he is a little bit of a bigger body, probably more of a natural power forward, or small forward, but the way that the game's being played right now, he slots in at power forward nicely. And they already have their defensive stopper pretty much in Torrey Craig at small forward that. And again, he looks like I don't want to overhype him too much, but just a guy that plays that Tony Allen type role. Doesn't need a lot of shots. Will take smart ones here and there, but he's on the court just to shut people down.
Yeah, I mean he certainly has a reputation of being a two-way player before his injuries. So again, how do you judge that? I mean, he didn't even play his senior year, but for I think one or two games at Missouri, correct? Wasn't it Missouri?
Yeah, Missouri.
And so I don't know. I mean, it's not the right team for him to be on because of the depth. That's his biggest problem, I think, is how the heck do you get on the floor when you got Paul Millsap, Jeremy Grant, Torrey Craig, Will Barton, Gary Harris, Malik Beasley, guys that playing even the 2, 3, 4 spots ahead of you. So I don't know, man. I mean, he could be a huge surprise. I know I'm going to steer clear. I just don't see him getting the minutes initially.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for him to crack that. Like you said, they have probably the deepest team in the league. One of them, the Bucks are pretty deep as well. There's a few others that we can go with, but they have a very deep roster. They're a very experienced roster. The team, played very well together. And we saw very interchangeable parts, guys that can play multiple positions. So he's going to have to kind of carve himself out a role, and it's going to be hard for him to do, barring somebody getting hurt, or him just outright blowing the roof off the house. I'm with you. I think it's going to be a hard time for him to find any sort of playing time other than just 16 minutes. And it's a guy that didn't play at all last year, so you can't imagine that they're just going to want to throw him in there. He's always injury riddled, dealing with multiple injuries at a time usually. So I kind of just don't see it from really this year. I mean, maybe it's a good time to buy low in Dynasty, but you're going to be sitting on something for a little while. And, we've seen in the past, I'm not going to write him off or anything right now. I think he still has a very, very bright future, but there's a lot of guys that come out of high school and college that are crazy athletic, that have all the NBA talent in the world, who just can't. This if it's injury or.
Oh, I lost.
I'm sorry.
I lost you, man.
Oh, okay. There we go. I guess that might have been me. Who knows? But
you want to hit the rest of Denver?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like as far as for DFS, I think we're looking at Jokic. You're looking at Murray here and there when you're talking, GPPs. He's not necessarily a great cash game play. And I think we're going to probably see a little bit of a better year from Gary Harris. He was a guy I was very high on. I love his play. Very good two-way player. But, he was kind of injury riddled a little bit last season. I think he was playing through a few nagging injuries throughout the year, hampering him. It's when you're dealing with some things, ankle injuries, it's tough to kind of get back to that form for the rest of the season. So I imagine he was playing hurt for a lot of the year. And it's a guy that they love to close games with him, and they'll load him up on minutes when he's healthy. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not really playing Grant. I'm not really playing Millsap. They're going to cut into each other's minutes, so I'm off of both of them. And Craig is just mainly a defensive stopper, not a guy I'm really looking for to, in DFS lineups.
No doubt. And, Jokic obviously going to be one of the highest owned guys every night. Triple-double machine, hard not to play in the right scenarios when they're playing a team that doesn't match up well with them. I think that he'll continue to be in a lot of winning GPP lineups because he was last year. I mean, he was on a lot of those tournaments that were taken down. He was the focal point of those teams. But I think that as from a DFS standpoint, the biggest negative with Denver is just like you said, their depth. I mean, I rattled off 6 of their just 2, 3, 4 players. Murray, who I love, Jamal Murray. I think he's just a fantastic player that's going to be a star in this league. Monty Morris did such a terrific job off the bench last year, very valuable. And, they didn't lose anybody. They got this whole contingency back, including Jeremy Grant. Hernan Gomez is still there. And I know your favorite player, Bol is on the squad, right?
Listen, I mean, I don't know how much he's going to play. I think I read a report that they're going to throw him in the G League probably for the full season.
Yeah,
he's got to bulk up and everything like that. But I think he was a steal in the draft. Still, I think he fell a little bit too low. I don't think Denver even went in there really wanting him. Right. But at that point of the draft, what do you have to lose? Take a shot on him.
You saw some of the pictures I sent from Summer League. I mean, the man is just one of the biggest human beings I've ever seen. I mean, he is a huge guy, and his feet aren't that bad. They really aren't. They're not that bad. Who knows? You never know.
No, that's exactly what they thought too. So we'll see. I mean, at the end of the day, we've seen plenty of guys taken in the second round. Even guys that take 2 years to kind of grow into their own. I mean, I think I was just today on Twitter. I saw a picture of Kristaps Porzingis's rookie season, like right before the draft, and a picture of him now, and the difference is absolutely insane. And you could say the same thing about Giannis when he came in there. He next to nothing, and now he's one of the most ripped dudes in the NBA. So, it might just take a couple of years for him to kind of get that body, but he has the intangibles to be a very good player.
I hope so, man. I'll never forget. I watched the game when Manute Bol, his father, went for a rebound, put it back up, missed it, jumped back up, and this is a true story. I'm not kidding you. He was so big. The guy hit him on his way up, and he was going up, and he broke his teeth on the rim. And that's a true story. But I'll tell you what, Manute was amazing. He could shoot the three. He was lost way too early. But the fact that his son is in the league is just mind-boggling to me. It's just crazy. But very cool. So I hope, I'm wishing him the best, but a major project. I'm sure it'll be a huge draw in the G League, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, who's not going to want to watch him?
No doubt.
Very good player. But, I mean, that's pretty much where I'm at with the Nuggets. It's almost like a reverse, Magic standpoint where there's 1-2 guys and then nobody else I'm really looking at, and it's because of just the depth that they have. And let's keep in mind, teams traveling into Denver isn't necessarily a thing that we want to target too much either, just with that altitude.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a real thing. I mean, there's no question about it. So we'll see how it goes. All right, I'm gonna jump to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and that's not much of a jump. Certainly a team that has a lot of growth to do. There are some targets here, though. I mean, obviously, Cat is going to possibly have, number one overall ranked DFS guy kind of season. It's very possible. He's going in that top 3 or 4 picks in a lot of the drafts. I think people see that expectation long term for him. And on any DFS night, as long as he stays out of foul trouble, he's going to put up, monster numbers. So Cat will see my lineup a ton. I'm not an Andrew Wiggins guy at all. I think he's totally points. Is really the only category he pushes himself. I don't see him even playing that hard defensively. I just not a Wiggins DFS guy or fan whatsoever. I think having Robert Covington back could be a big boost for Minnesota. He's been a little bit of a darling in some of the early talks here, DFS wise, because he's obviously can lead the league in steals, knock down a bunch of threes, get some rebounds. Can be a very nice pivot in DFS off of some other people. So I think he's a good guy to keep on your radar, but I think he'll be fairly highly owned early on just because everybody's thinking the same thing. Jeff Teague at point, sufficient, not spectacular. Again, a hit or miss guy. If you can start him on the right night, could be decent. And other than that, got a lot of building. Okogie's improving. Jared Culver, who's a high pick. They also picked up Jake Layman, who can shoot it for sure. But, I don't see much from the Timberwolves. I think they'll be maybe the worst team in the West, possibly, because I think Phoenix will improve. But, Cat's got to be a consideration every night. And then after that, if you spy out a guy that you want on a specific matchup, but if not, man, they are not strong.
Yeah, no, I think Teague's pretty much like you said. He's a tournament play on most nights. On the right matchups, you feel a little bit more confident playing him, but you really don't know what you're getting. I like Tyus Jones on any night that Teague misses, or I could just say when Teague gets his first ankle sprain of the season. We know that's going to happen. He gets probably a good 3 or 4 here. So, when that happens, plug Tyus Jones in there.
Tyus Jones is not on the T-Wolves anymore. He is moved somewhere. Where is Tyus Jones?
I thought they. Are you sure? I thought they brought him back. I thought because I expected them to leave completely, and it looks like they brought him back.
Did they? So, I'll do a quick check when you're finishing up. I thought I really was gone. But.
Well, look into that real fast for me. I'll go on. With Wiggins, I'm not touching him with a 10-foot pole now that Robert Covington's back in there. We saw him kind of have a little bit of an increased usage in the games that Covington missed with that bone bruise last season, and we'd have the occasional good shooting performance. But, they already talked into Wiggins a little bit during the offseason, mentioning how they want him to take more, better shots, I guess you could say. They were trying to say it in a nice way, basically flat out saying that this guy can't shoot. He needs to kind of limit his shot attempts. Yeah. We're talking about a few guys that left. Dario Saric is gone. Taj Gibson is gone. So that's probably why they brought in Layman. They're going to probably play Rocco just primarily at the power forward, but on those bigger matchups, they
also have Jordan Bell they picked up also.
Yes, and I think he's going to be seeing a lot of that backup center.
I think he could get some decent minutes. I mean, he's athletic enough. And Tyus Jones is with the Grizz, so Tyus did move on. So it's that ups Jeff Teague's stock a little bit as well. So how Tyus Jones is going to fit in with that mix with Jaw? Maybe he's just going to help bring Jaw along with the Grizz. But
I see. There you go. So I gotta look into that then. Then I thought that for sure that they brought him back, but you're obviously right. Mm-hmm. So take that one off the board then. I guess Jeff Teague's what they're gonna be rolling with. Who do they have playing backup point for them right now? Because I was full blown.
Shabazz Napier right now is listed on their.
That's right. Okay, now this is all ringing the bell. So yeah, and again, that's another thing. So we seen Shabazz light it up even in when he was over there playing in Brooklyn when he had an opportunity. So it's for me, it's basically gonna be targeting the Karl Anthony Towns and Rocco, and then Teague in tournaments. Even Rocco, he's probably more of that cash game option. Which when I say cash game, doesn't mean you can't play him in a tournament. It just doesn't necessarily make as much sense as when you're talking about those 8, 7, 6, 10 game slates where you have a lot of other options as well. So there's usually a couple other guys that will have a little bit more upside if you're trying to take down like a large GPP. But when you're not really worried about ownership and you're just trying to double your money up or whatever it is, he's a fantastic play.
Yeah. The thing that's becoming evident as, we're almost 20 out of 30 teams through here is there are a lot of teams that only have one or two really strong, viable DFS players, more than you would think. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's going to be slim pickings early. I think you're going to get a lot of dual ownerships, because basketball is different than other sports like football and baseball and everything, where people stack and do different things. And it seems like there's just a lot of teams that are poor with only a few viable DFS options.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're kind of going to have to take our edge, is kind of guessing those spots, because these teams that do play at fast paces, there's generally always going to be a third one that pops out of somewhere. Maybe not on a night-to-night basis, but there's always that extra guy who is the perfect GPP play because he's going to be the lower-owned option who can easily get his own. And we're just going to have to wait and kind of see. But I think going into it, we'll be able to kind of crank out a little bit more research, or we might be able to get a few of them nailed down before it starts so we could take advantage of.
Awesome, man. And we only have 2 teams left. I know we're going super long again, but, we're here for you, man. We're grinding. We're getting you ready for the season. We're not going to let a single stone be unturned. But I do have to thank Fantasy Draft for the sponsorship. Definitely get on there and play their 700,000 guaranteed contest. Go to fantasydraft.com, use the promo code HoopBall, and make some money, man. Get on there and get it done. Also, if you've missed the first couple of 3 or 4 episodes of the show and you want to get caught up before the season gets started here, remember you can find us anywhere podcasts are found: Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, iHeart, Spotify, YouTube. Please rate, review, subscribe. Those 5 stars mean a lot. Likes, positive reviews, subscribe. That allows us to continue to bring all of this free content forward on a weekly and soon to be nightly basis. Okay, we're going to drill through the final 2 teams here. One of the last teams I'll start out with here is Portland Trailblazers, and we have a quick clip of when they brought Hassan Whiteside over from the Heat, which was a big sort of shocking move in the offseason. Him talking a bit about the new offense and how he's going to fit into the system with Portland.
Yeah, I love passing. So, I'm looking for the opportunity. Just like I said, the offense they got so much movement. It's just a way different thing than just your standard pick and roll. And I've been looking at the offense a lot. It's the reason why I was top 3 last year in the NBA.
Right, and there's Hassan, and he feels he can be a focal point of the offense there with the 2 good guards and being the big man. So we'll see how it goes. Nurkic is going to be out for quite a while, and he certainly can lead the league in blocks. He's done it before. Very hard to predict. I mean, he was a lot of people busted on him in lineups last year because of the lack of minutes. But he's out of Miami. He's in Portland. He's the starting center. Maybe worth an early flyer. We'll see how that goes specifically on the matchups. But Portland begins and ends with Lillard and McCollum, like we know. Lillard put up some just incredible DFS games last year, just off the charts. McCollum in the right spots also. They're one of those scenarios where if one of them ever sits, the first lock play needs to be the other one in your lineup. That's just a given. I love the fact that Anthony Simons is going to get some rotation minutes off the bench. He was super impressive in Summer League and seems to be coming into his own. I think he's the heir apparent eventually to Lillard down the road, because Simons, I believe, is like 19, 20 years old. So, but he's going to be a good one. I really enjoyed watching him play this summer. So keep an eye on him if Lillard takes a night off, or even McCollum. They may rotate those guards on those off nights. Right now they're talking about Zach Collins moving over from the 5 to start at the 4. Certainly can, knock down some threes and spread the floor a little bit. Is it going to work, Collins and Whiteside? We'll see. I think that there's the potential for that. There were some games where Collins did put up some good DFS numbers. I mean, at the beginning of the season, he wasn't even getting off the bench, but he became a very good DFS useful guy, especially in the last quarter of the season, and because he can definitely throw up some quick points and rebounds. Does get in some foul trouble for sure, but a guy with Collins and Whiteside is really going to be interesting to see how that works, and guys that are viable on a given night. Other than that, I think it's shooting from the hip. It's going to be one-off plays. Rodney Hood, Mario Hezonja, Kent Bazemore, guys like that. Pau Gasol is actually on the Trailblazers, which is sort of bizarre. But I think you play Lillard as much as you can. Use McCollum in the right spots, and if you get a right matchup, Collins and Whiteside are definitely options.
Yeah, I mean, Whiteside's another guy that I'm going to be pretty high on. I think early on, I think he's going to be a little bit underpriced just from the bad taste left in everybody's mouth. The best season and a half, but looking at his numbers, we really don't know what to expect as far as minutes. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking one of the seasons where was he even his career high in minutes. The 2015-16 season, he played 29.1 minutes, averaged 14.2 points, 11.8 boards, and 3.7 blocks.
He led the league in blocks that season, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely, yes. It was an absolute monster. And then if we take, his first year, I guess, breaking out with the Heat, he played about 24 minutes, averaged 11.8 points, 10 rebounds, 2.6 blocks. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the average of that. He got about 26 minutes, and his 26 minutes numbers with those two seasons was about 12 points, 13 points, 11 rebounds, and about just over 3 blocks. So still very, very viable, and basically setting you up for a 35 to 40 point night in DFS. So looking at a guy that could most likely be about under 7K, maybe about that 6 range is where I'm kind of thinking he's going to be. He's a great point per minute producer, and I'm expecting a pretty big night from him. I'd say at least in his first 3 games of underpricedness.
Yeah, I think you're right on. And listening to the whole interview of that snippet we gave you, earlier on, they really are talking about utilizing him, and they making him a really key big. And then when Nurkic comes back, who knows? That whole thing may change at that point. But he's not expected back until very late. So, all right, dude, you get to finish it up and start us off with our last squad, and then we'll wrap up this another marathon, in-depth, get you ready for the season and make tons of money with the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, so, I mean, we talked about the Jazz a lot already, just because they had 2 of the bigger offseason moves. So we talked about them a little bit on our first night when we kind of highlighted all those moves.
Yeah.
Bringing in Bogdanovich and Conley is going to really affect the offensive makeup of their team, pushing Ingles most likely coming off the bench as their 6th man. So, the guys I'm going to be looking at, I think a lot of people are going to be on Conley just because it's a new face. I think a lot of people are going to be off Mitchell just because Conley's there. So, the only thing that kind of scares me away from Mitchell is I still expect him to have a pretty decent price tag. I don't expect that to really take a hit. But, so I'm that's a wait and see for me just to kind of see what that looks like before I really kind of buy in on it. I just expect him to be a little bit under-owned with his usage not taking that big of a hit. Ingles, I'm probably just going to stay away from unless it's like a shorter slate. Bogdanovich, he's a guy that I was never thrilled about playing ever in his career. He does have those random nights where he goes off. But, again, we're talking about a guy that had the highest usage of his career last season with the Pacers. So for me, Gobert, Conley in the right price, right matchup, and I'd say Mitchell in any matchup for the right price. We just got to see where he's going to fall. If he's around that 74 to 82 mark, I'll be kind of all over that. But last season he was touching points where he was 87, 8,800, and while I don't think Conley's going to greatly affect him, it's going to affect him a little bit where I'm going to want to steer clear of that kind of price range.
I don't blame you, man. And I'm Quinn Snyder's philosophy, the tough D and play hard, and they got the right guys with Gobert and Conley and the mix of Ingles and those guys to play that kind of ball, which to me is a little bit of a deterrent for DFS. So I'm always hesitant with the Jazz. I mean, they're not the worst paced team in the league, but they're going to protect the ball and make good decisions and slow it down a little bit. So, they're going to be one-offs for me. Conley on a given night can do well. He's being backed up right now by Moutier and Dante Exum. So, I think he's going to be the main man getting the main minutes. Donovan Mitchell, after watching FIBA, he had that one half, but other than that, was just very average. I'm not as confident with his long-range shot, I think, as it can be, in the future. But, I think his price tag is just always so darn high for what he brings to you. So I'm a little worried there. Like you said, Bogdanovich, the usage issue coming down a little bit now, being more of a third, fourth option. I still think he can shoot the eyes out on any given night, and I will use him from time to time. The rest of the guys, Gobert, you can obviously use. There are nights where he'll have 6 or 8 points, and just rebound and get some blocks, but not a team that I'm going to lean strongly on at all, especially now that Ed Davis is backing up. They added Jeff Green, and so there's some other guys that'll hit that rotation and cause some usage decrease. So probably going to steer a little bit from the Jazz, especially early on. So, all right, man.
That's it. We did it. We got through another division, couple divisions.
We did 2 divisions. We're 20 out of 30 teams down. Next week, we tackle the even more interesting Pacific and Southwest, which have all the craziness of New Orleans and Lakers and Clippers, and so next week's going to be awesome as well, man. But any last thoughts for our listeners?
No, man. I would say if you haven't, what am I saying? No, and then I just come up with a thought. Yes, go sign up at Fantasy Draft. Use promo code HoopBall, no dash, just HoopBall, and take advantage of this rake free. I mean, like I said, I am by no means an expert. I'm sure there's probably 500 other guys that you can find good information from regarding football slates. But shoot me a Twitter. Shoot me a tweet, and we'll jump in a contest, do a heads up, maybe get a little one going for this Sunday, and ask for some help. I would love to kind of tell you and share my thoughts with you. If you want to hear them, whether you want to use them or not, it's on you. But either way, get ready, build your bankroll, get ready for this NBA season because we're going to crush it this year.
We are going to kill it, and shoot us some questions, comments, anything you want us to address at the show. During the show. You can catch us both at hoop-ball.com on the forums there, or I'm on Twitter at Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi. He's at Mike Apotria, MikeApotria. And, we appreciate you listening. I would assume to listen to this pod like in 2 or 3 sections just to absorb all of it. But, again, we're bound and determined to get through every team and every player before the ball tips here in a very short period of time. So, again, we want to thank you for joining us at Hoop Ball NBA DFS today. For Mike Apotria, I'm Coach. We'll catch up with you next week again when we're putting it together to crush this NBA DFS season.
Take care, guys.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.